gentlemen, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me now? All right, good morning. Thank you, I'm sorry for the delay. As you know, my name is David Bergeron. Could somebody do me a favor and turn this light off on this projector for 1 second, if you wouldn't mind, if there's some way? Thank you. My name is David Bergeron. I am your town moderator, and I will be running this town meeting today. I have a few personal words I want to start before I call this town meeting to order, and that is, I do want to say today will be my last official act as town moderator. I have loved serving this community. I have served this community since 1969 in many, many, many capacities. I've enjoyed everything that I have done, and I will continue to enjoy coming to town meetings and being a member of this town. I want to thank you all for allowing me to have served you all these years, and once again, let's get on with the program. Thank you. All right, one more thing here before I call it to order. Let's get a few house rules in place here. First off, if you have any phones or what have you, I'd like to have you place them on vibrate. The fire exits are at the back of the room and on the side of me here to my right and my left. For the benefits of those who are attending the town meeting for the first time, the general procedure is and will be, I normally provide this front row for people who are going to speak. If you are going to speak, you're going to come down here and you're going to sit in these rows, and I'm going to recognize you. You're going to use a microphone. Everything will be addressed through the moderator. There are no personalities. There are business issues on this warrant, and that's all there are business issues. I will not allow any personalities. If anybody wants to consist or persist on that, I will have them removed from the town meeting. Let there be no doubt in your mind. Okay? And then we will proceed on from there. I think we have a lot of business ahead of us. We have a lot of agenda to attend to here. Any motion, whether it be a main motion or a substitute motion, whether it does or does not have money, will be presented to me in writing. Okay, there will be no other recourse on that, because I don't want to put words into somebody else's mouth. I'm going to go by what somebody wants and not by what I want. Okay? If somebody decides that they want to move the motion or something, such thing like that, I'm not going to accept somebody standing in place and hollering it out. I'm going to have you come down here and use a microphone like all people who are going to speak, and then you will make your motion and we will proceed from there. But I'm not going to take any jumping up or hollering. Now, if there are people here who are handicapped and want to speak and are unable to speak, please get my attention and let me know, because I will have a microphone brought to you. Okay? Speakers do not need to wait until somebody has finished speaking. If you want to speak, you may come down and sit in the seats while that person is speaking. I would like to have everybody have the opportunity and the right to be able to have a say in this meeting. And so for that reason, I will permit one speaker at a time. I will not permit that speaker to speak twice until the other people have had the opportunity to have spoken before. I will try to adhere to this. If I make a mistake, bring it to my attention. I'll try not to. God knows I make them. All right, at this time I'm calling this meeting officially to order. I would like to call for Article 1, please. Oh, excuse me. I've made a mistake again, as usual. Thank you. I would ask you to please stand, take off your hats, gentlemen, if you're wearing them, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Thank you. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would also ask you to remain standing for a moment, please, because I think it would be appropriate for us to give a moment of silence for the fallen firefighters in Boston most recently. I think it was very, very tragic. And for all firefighters, past and present and in the future, who are donating their lives to us, please, I would like a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now let's get on. I have one more thing here that I would like to read, and that's one last time I will read this. Welcome to Templeton Town Meeting. We have come together in civil assembly as a community and a tradition that is older than our state itself. We come together to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying I am right and saying I believe I am right, and that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. Welcome. Now I have called for Article 1, and in Article 1 we have a small explanation that's going to be given by our town relative to our financial situation, and I will permit this, and we will bear with this for just a few minutes. It shouldn't be all that long, and thank you very much.
Article 1, that an additional $505,000 be raised in fiscal year 2014 real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the municipal government in accordance with the appropriations voted by the town at the May 14, 2013 annual town meeting for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2013, provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect unless or until the town votes by ballot to exempt this account from the limitations on taxes set forth in Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21 CI, Proposition 2.5, so called.
Second.
We good? Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Markle, and I've been in Templeton as the interim.
Hang on, Mr.
I'm sorry?
Did I hear a second on that?
Yeah, sorry.
Now that I've heard a second,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Markle, you may proceed. Thank you.
Yes, I've been here since late January as the interim town administrator. Since the town is going to be addressing some very important financial issues this morning, I prepared a presentation that kind of frames some of the issues that we're dealing with. Here we go. Next slide. We're going to be looking at problems over the last 2 fiscal years. And obviously we have a new fiscal year coming on the 1st of July. So we're really talking today about 3 fiscal years and some of the problems that have developed. The state of Massachusetts Department of Revenue requires every city and town in the Commonwealth to file 2 forms every year. And it's important because if we don't file the forms, among other things, we can't set our tax rate and we don't get certification of free cash. The so-called tax recap form, normally filed at the beginning of the fiscal year. In that form, you must show to the state that your budget is balanced. If you don't show a balanced budget, then they will not accept the form, and then you can't set your tax rate. Mr. Moderator, there's a question here. Should we address the question? Gentleman has a question. This gentleman here.
Yes, sir. Could you define balanced budget? Because it means different things to different people, especially the United States. Balance means...
You don't have to be balanced at the federal level. state and local governments typically require both the state government and your local government to have revenues that meet the level of expenditures for the year. That's simply it. In other words, you have to have enough revenue to accommodate the amount of spending that the town meeting, in this case, adopts. The state has the same rule, and it applies to all cities and towns. And so you've got to show a balanced budget before, on the tax recap, before they will allow you to set your tax rate and send out tax bills. This is normally filed at the beginning of the year. Schedule A is normally filed at the end of the fiscal year. And as a result of that, the state will then certify something called free cash, which is the accumulation of any surpluses that you've had in your budget process over the previous year and even going back before that. So if you run a surplus, the state calls it free cash. And obviously it's important to have a level of free cash because it's part of your reserves. And you can use it practically any way you like. Next, please, Julie. As again, we're going to be talking about 3 fiscal years, 13, 14, and 15. We're currently in 14. New Year's Day for the state and local governments is July 1. So, and you skip ahead 1 year. So on July 1 of 2014, we enter 2015. Please, no. This can get confusing. Now I'll talk about fiscal 13, where we've had problems that have just been corrected. Can you, yeah, please. In fiscal 13, which ended last June 30th, last year, Schedule A was not filed with the Department of Revenue, and therefore we had no certification of free cash. Yes, please. Schedule A wasn't filed because cash reconciliation was not completed, and some entries into the general ledger were inaccurate and up to date. Please. In November, the town hired a forensic accountant to assist in updating financial data, and the state sent letters. Actually, a second letter was received on the 14th of this month saying that if you don't file Schedule A, we're going to cut off state aid. And that includes all categories that we get from the state. So that's a real threat. Next one. Schedule A was filed by March 14th. And the DOR certified free cash yesterday. It takes them a while to go through it, and if you had seen the email exchange, you went back and forth all last week to make sure that all the data in Schedule A was accurate and up to date. Please, next. Here's the letter that we received yesterday. I just dropped it into the slide this morning. It's from Bob Nunes, obviously Deputy Commissioner, Director of Municipal Affairs. It was sent to Fred Aponte, who was the acting town accountant, and he finished his work with the town yesterday. We don't have a town accountant as of today. And here's the information signed by Jerry Perry, the Director of Accounts. And here's the important information. It may be hard for you to see. The town not only does not have a positive free cash balance, we have a deficit of $26,000, $26,899 in the general fund. The sewer department enterprise fund has a surplus of $921,000, but the town has a free cash deficit. That is very rare, and as you'll see later on, the town has had free cash certified in the range of $800,000 a few years ago. So it's been a long way down in terms of the loss of free cash. Please, next slide. Now we're into fiscal 14. Obviously, we closed out fiscal 13 literally this week, literally yesterday, with the Department of Revenue. So we're closed out on that, and the bad news is no free cash and a deficit, which the town will have to deal with today. Now we're into fiscal 14, the current fiscal year that ends June 30th. It was discovered that the town has a $505,000 budget gap in the budget adopted at the May 2013 annual town meeting. Reason for the deficit? Well, I guess there's complex reasons there, but basically the town has lacked good financial data, largely because the financial management operation of the town has had a lot of turnover. and it's been fairly chaotic. One of the things that the town clearly needs going forward is a stable financial management system, meaning, among other things, assessors in place, obviously, who can do their work, a town accountant who can do the job, and a treasurer and a collector who can get the job done, collect the data, submit it on time to the state so that the town can have normal fiscal circumstances. Next, please. Here again, the tax recap cannot be submitted this year because we have to show a balanced budget. Tax rate has not been certified. Tax bills haven't been sent out since, what, December? They sent out two estimated bills, but a certified tax rate has not been established for this year. Next, please. As a result, the town is borrowing money to operate, pay bills and operate. A so-called tax anticipation note was issued several months ago in order to be able to obviously function normally. This is the reason for this special town meeting addressing this problem. And this meeting has been delayed because it was hoped that free cash would be certified and that free cash, perhaps, and some other measures could be taken to close this gap. But obviously, this is not working out well. Next, please. Now, budget deficit, any budget deficit anywhere can be reduced in three ways. Reduce the budget. You can use one-time revenue, namely free cash, and stabilization fund, or you can ask for additional taxes. Those are the only three ways that we can deal with this $505,000 shortfall that we have. Next, please. In January, the Select Board mandated a 5% reduction in the operating budgets of all departments. This, however, if you look at the whole amount, it's going to provide about $148,000. Doesn't get you very far. Part of the reason for that is that as the year goes by, obviously you spend the money and you'd have less and less left to cut. Next, please. Surprise, no free cash. One-time revenues. Now, as I'm going to point out shortly, the town has consistently used one-time revenue to close a budget gap every year since maybe 10 years ago. I have data from 2007, but basically it's been using one-time revenue to close what we'll call a structural deficit, a permanent shortfall in revenue for the year. We have in the stabilization fund, which is the town's main reserve, this is the reserve fund, we have $103,000, and if we used all that, we will strip the town of any reserves, and then you're really in trouble if an emergency occurs. So that's not good. The Department of Revenue typically recommends that you have in your reserve about 10% of your operating budget in case emergencies arise. Also, if you use one-time revenue, now we know we can't, but if you did use one-time revenue to close the gap, the problem isn't solved because it's pushed forward into the next year, 2015. You still have that gap. Next slide, please. As I said, this is called a structural deficit, meaning a permanent deficit. It keeps going year after year, and it's been patched over in the past by the use of free cash. Here's the most important slide. Here's what the town has done over the years. As you can see, in fiscal 2007, the town used $784,000 in free cash to balance the budget of $4 million or so. In fiscal 08, it used $403 on a budget of $3.6 million. In fiscal 09, $665. Notice how this free cash fluctuates. That's why it's called one time. You never quite know what it's going to be. Although the pattern here is it seems to be going down. And so here's the trend here. Fiscal 11, fiscal 12, fiscal 13, $189,000 and a $4,000,006 budget. And so over the years, that has been the method that's been used here to cover a shortfall of revenue. Rather than use so-called recurring revenue that you get every year, like property taxes, town has used free cash. It works as long as you have free cash. Structural deficits can only be resolved by permanent reductions in services or additional taxes. Article 1 proposes a general override of Prop 2.5 by that amount of money. Here's the tax rates. I'm sure that people would like to know the information of what would happen if they vote for it. The tax rate for fiscal 12 was $14.60 per thousand. It went down to $14.12 because the senior center debt was discharged. And so that was an override. That was a debt exclusion, so-called. And when you discharge the debt, your tax rate goes down. In the fall of last year, the town voted another override, I think mostly for the schools, and that raised the rate this year. I guess if we're now going to get it certified, but the rate this year should be $15.26, and if the 505 is included this year in an override, the tax rate in fiscal 15, which begins July 1, would be $16.20 per $1,000 of value on your property. Okay. Having sat in town meetings before as a resident, I can tell you that the first thing that most people ask is, what are you doing besides asking us for more money? What are you doing to try and improve town government so that this doesn't happen again? I want to just go quickly the last few slides to tell you a number of measures are underway right now, initiated by the advisory board, the Board of Selectmen, and myself to try and make government more efficient, to try and consolidate some of our departments, and reduce expenses as much as we can. We have to get a new town accountant. I have one who will start Monday. It's going to be a 20-hour position, not a 40-hour position. We think that the job can be done by an accountant, by a good accountant, in 20 hours a week. There is a warrant article before you today to merge the treasurer's and the collector's offices. Most towns do it that way. Most towns have a treasurer-collector's office. Other departmental consolidations are being actively considered. Can I have the next slide, please? Also, the town has about $700,000 in uncollected back taxes. And so there is an effort underway to take the tax liens that we have that have been filed at the registry and to collect those taxes. There's two ways you can do it. You can go to land court and get the land court to foreclose, or you can sell those liens. The quicker way to do it, the way that we can do it between now and the end of the fiscal year, frankly, is to make sure the liens are up to date in terms of any payments made, and then to sell those liens. There are several companies that will buy them. I've checked with other communities in the Commonwealth, as well as the Department of Revenue. They recommend that that's an approach that we should use. We probably can't collect $700,000 because a big chunk of that is the factory that closed down, the American Tissue. But there are taxes that can be collected there. That comes in, and that would be, again, one-time revenue. It would boost free cash back to where it would be healthy, and it'll replenish reserves, in other words. Select Board has also appointed a tax title custodian to sell off town-owned property, foreclosed properties. No reason for the town to be a landlord and to own property. Selling it, you get some money, and also you restore the property to the tax rolls. So, next one, please. All positions in the town government organization are being evaluated. And while usually those who ask for sacrifice should make the sacrifice themselves first. Staff in the town, in the Board of Selectmen office, town administrator office, we've had 2 people for a number of years. It's down to 1. It's going to stay that way. Next one, please. A decision's coming on either continuing to rent town hall and, in conjunction with that, move other town offices that are scattered around into one building, saving on utilities and heat and light and so forth, or to move to another building that the town owns. Clearly, significant savings can be recognized by consolidating offices in one place, and, if possible, in a town-owned building. Also, bidding contracts. Some of the biggest expenses that we have in town are for health care and for health insurance, I should say, and for building liability insurance. They haven't been bid for a while. It's been my experience over the years that you can realize some significant gains by rebidding those contracts and any other contracts that you have on a regular basis to get the best price. Budget cuts, consolidations, efficiency measures, absolutely necessary, but I think the reality is they're not going to close the gap. The only way to eliminate the gap for this year, the structural deficit, as we'll call it, and for next year and the future is to deal, unfortunately, with taxes. I think that's the last slide. Yes, okay, thank you. Sorry to take so much time, but these are complex issues that the town is facing.
It looks wobbly.
Oh, I'm
I don't want you to fall
not
off the
worried
stage.
about it. If I fall over here, then you can deal with the problem. Now, I'm going to ask you to reread the motion because it's been a long time since the motion had been read. Could we please reread the motion? It's been a long time with the presentation and what have you.
Move, is this on? Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead.
Move that an additional $505,000 be raised in FY 2014 real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding the municipal government in accordance with the appropriations voted by the town at the May 14th, 2013 annual town meeting for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013. Provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect unless or until the town votes by ballot to exempt this amount from the limitations on taxes set forth in Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21CI, Proposition 2.5, so called.
Is there any discussion on this motion? Mr.
Mr. Moderator,
Spring.
the advisory board, not only you saw the presentation made by the interim administrator, we did do an initial study. In addition to that, it shows that stabilization money over a number of years were about $200,000 were used in addition to the free cash. And during the years of 2006 to 2011, our preliminary data shows that overlay and reserve money was also used. So based upon what you saw Mr. Markle end up presenting and what we had done for an analysis, the advisory board unanimously recommends a yes vote for an override.
Okay, all right, Virginia? Slide it over there, girl.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, I would like to ask Mr. Markle a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all,
One at a time. We'll take
Got it.
one question and one answer at a time.
okay. First of all, they're asking for a $505,000 override. Not once, but twice in the newspaper, Mr. Markle quoted that, it quotes Mr. Markle as saying that the deficit is now $378,000 because the Department of Revenue came in and said part of that 505 was not a problem anymore. So why, now even understanding that the new deficit from free cash for last year has to be added on to the 378, why are they not just asking for 404 now instead of 505?
The representative from the Springfield office of the Department of Revenue came to town about 2 weeks ago, and she spent from 9:30 in the morning till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon in our offices looking at various records and financial information. She said to me at the end of the day that there were 3 items that looked like they were going to favor the town and bring our deficit down to the level that you mentioned. I believe the total was $127,000 that would work out in our favor and reduce that deficit. In the later exchanges between our acting town accountant and the Department of Revenue representative, and I think our select board here has seen some of them, I think we probably had at least 12 different exchanges back and forth, and as a result of that, to my surprise, those numbers did not work out, according to the Department of Revenue, in our favor, in the town's favor, and to my big surprise, I was expecting that we would have significant free cash available. To open up that letter yesterday and see the shocking free cash deficit was as much a surprise to me as anyone. So the answer to your question, Ms. Wilder, is that what Debbie Wagner told me that day turned out not to be the case. According to their calculations.
Excuse me, Mr. Murphy, I understand that he answered your question, the fact that the Department of Revenue possibly erred in their earlier statement because they found out that these were not the facts.
Yes.
And that that unfortunately it didn't play out in our favor as we would have hoped that it would have.
That is correct. That's correct.
Thank you for your answer. Second question to you is, the new accountant, is he going to be a CPA?
Yes.
Thank you. And I just have a comment over that. I cannot afford to continually raise my taxes every year. Now, this is the second time this year that they're going to be raised. I need to have some kind of stability. I have a fixed income and I need to have stability. I can't afford, because of mismanagement of funds, to have to pay more money all the time in my taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Robinson, you're next, Mr. Robinson.
Hello, Ken Robinson, Old North Road. I wanted to speak to a question that I've received a lot from people in person or on Facebook, and that I haven't been able to answer, and I will continue to not be able to answer it, but hopefully can explain why. Since this structural deficit was discovered back in late fall, I've asked repeatedly from various members of the financial team, most of whom are no longer employed by the town, to explain what happened. I was accused by several people of trying to finger point and cause problems and things along those lines, when I think we all know that history...
All right. Let's keep it down. If you got something else to say about the articles, we'll say it, but never
Okay, well,
mind.
thank you. I'm getting there. They elected
Thank
me.
you.
I'd like to speak. Thank you. That I was told, right, that, but I think we all know that history is doomed to repeat itself if we don't learn from the mistakes. So many of you have asked me, explain to me exactly why it wasn't until 6 months later that we discovered this deficit. Why is it that there is no free cash when in the past there's been more than $500,000? And the simple answer that I can give you is, the majority of the people that can answer those questions are no longer responsible to the town. Since this deficit was discovered, the town coordinator is no longer with the town treasurer is no longer with the town accountant is no longer with the town, and the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is no longer on the Board of Selectmen. So if your vote today on the override is going to hinge on whether or not all of your questions can be answered, I'm sorry, but they're not going to be able to be answered. I haven't been able to get answers, and the fact that it's been 4 months, I'm assuming then that we don't know exactly every penny what happened and that we're not going to know. But one thing that I do want to make clear is I spoke at length with the Department of Revenue yesterday, and they made it very clear in that half-hour, 45-minute-long conversation that a no vote on the override would be devastating to the town. He wasn't making this suggestion for Templeton, and I'm not making the suggestion, but what was told to me is that towns that have faced similar size deficits as a proportion of their overall budgets, he suggested that what they generally do is they keep public safety and they get rid of cultural things, which he counts cultural as closing the library, closing the Council on Aging, getting rid of the care that we give to our parks. Again, I'm not suggesting that, but I just want people to be aware that a no vote could have ramifications that will be as severe as no longer having a library, no longer having a Council on Aging, not being able to take care of our parks, things along those lines. So obviously you have to vote your conscience, but just in your minds, please weigh whether voting no out of pure principle is worth the practical ramifications that no vote would have for the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. You're next. Name and address, please.
My name is Dave Shepard. I live on Musket Drive in Templeton, of course. And I'd just like to say that I'd like to thank the lady who was up here before for her courage and very good questions. I'd like to make a statement, ask a question, and then make a motion. For me, the year 2013 and 14 have been devastating in my household. My income goes down, and my bills go up constantly. And this hasn't been a new problem, this fiscal thing. It's been year after year. It started in 2000. I don't understand why it hasn't been fixed. Why do my bills keep going up and my income goes down? But the problem is, when devastating things happen, I have to deal with it. So I sat down with my wife. We did a one-page spreadsheet. I needed the numbers to be able to answer any questions she had for me, being a father and a family member. So my question is, we constantly hear rumors of misconduct in accounting. Are there any criminal investigations going on as far as accounting goes?
And to whom are you addressing that? To the Board of Selectmen?
Mr. Bergeron, either you or the entire board, if anyone can answer that, that'd be great.
Is there any answer to that question? If there's an answer, yes. If there isn't an answer, no.
There's got to be an anscer.
There isn't an answer at the particular moment.
So that means no, there's no criminal investigation
That's
going
what
on.
it says. There are no criminal investigations going on. That is your answer at this
It
point.
was stated, I'm sorry, Diane Haley Brooks. It was stated at the town hall meeting that there are no criminal investigations going on at this time.
Right, okay, that answers
That is
that
the
question,
answer.
okay?
Are there any plans within the near future for criminal investigations?
I can't
That's
answer
not a
that.
place to ask, I'm not, your question was asked and answered, and that's the end of that conversation, okay?
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion, and I'd like to handle it the same way that I would handle my home budget. I need a one-page spreadsheet to see the numbers. I don't think it's fair to ask the town to continually cover a proposed deficit or speculation. I don't really see the entire numbers. I don't see answers. I really need answers. Otherwise, I'd have to say that I'd like to vote no on anything going forward. I'd like to delay the meeting another week or two. That'd be my proposal. This is very frustrating.
Unfortunately, delaying the meeting is not going to accomplish anything. I understand that it's very frustrating for you.
I'd like to make the motion still. Can anyone second me to delay this meeting?
Wait a minute, you want to write it down and bring it to me, exactly the wording, and then I will have the town attorney review it, and then we will go from there, okay? I need it in writing. As I explained to you earlier, I have any motions, whether they contain money or not money, will be written, or any substitute motions will be written and presented to me in writing, okay? If I do not have an article presented to me in writing, I will not accept it, okay? That was
Understandable.
explained when I opened the meeting.
Can I write that down now and give it to you now?
You can write it down.
And that'll be addressed in this meeting?
Go ahead and write it down, and we'll see where we're going.
Okay.
Mr. Dennis, would you like to speak?
I assume that this is on.
Okay?
Okay. Wilfred Dennis, 27 Liberty Street, Otter River.
It's on. Just hold it closer to your mouth, Wilford. You had it too far down.
Okay?
That's, there you go, Wilford.
Good. Wilfred Dennis, 27 Liberty Street, Otter River, Mass. I stand not for or against this override. This is just a presentation of information. I don't know if it's accurate or not. All I know that it is taken from the Department of Revenue, and it has to do with the levy limit of F13 and F14. When we compare the bottom number, we find that there is an increase of $1,109,991 increase in the levy limit for F14 over F13. Now, the town administrator at the presentation last Friday made a comment, which I think he was very accurate on. He mentioned that the 505,000 would maybe work out approximately $1 on the tax rate. If the 500 works out to be $1 on the tax rate, then 1,109,000 as we sit here today, before we vote, means that we are now possibly facing a $2 increase in our taxes even before we vote on any override or debt exclusion. If you have a $200,000 valuation on your property, you're really looking between now and July 1 with an increase of about $400. Now, maybe the figures are wrong that the Department of Revenue has. One may ask, how come the 1,109,000? Well, 620,000, of course, was when we voted the override. One of the disturbing facts is that there's a $260,000 increase in the debt exclusion for F14 over F13. That's hard to explain, and most likely these figures have to be changed. I don't know. So I just thought I should point that out as a point of interest to you people, because you're possibly already facing a $2 increase in your tax rate for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Richie Chadia, Balmer Road. I was just wondering, you're asking everybody to take cuts. Is the school gonna take some cuts on this?
We as a town, because that's a good question. Obviously, we as a town might make that request of a school, but we do not have a right to take any action. When they had spoke earlier about what cuts we were going to take to the town, they have a right to take action on those articles, but not with the school. The school committee has to take whatever action it needs to take to help us in this matter. Whether they will or not, would it be nice if they could? You bet your boots it would be. But whether they will or not, we can't guarantee that, okay?
Yeah, well, I just think if you're asking Bud and all them to take cuts, I think they should take a cut too.
Thank you, okay? Go ahead.
Can I just bring this forward?
Is it okay if do I have to go down there to speak on that, or can I speak from here on that? I can go down if you want me to, that's fine. Go down, okay. You're speaking as a citizen. I guess.
Okay, I have before me a substitute motion which says I need to postpone this meeting until April 5th. And is this motion seconded? Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to postpone this meeting until April 5th. Is there any discussion on this motion, please? Mr. Robinson, go ahead. If you want to speak, yeah, right. You know the routine.
And I invite the town administrator to correct me if any of this information is incorrect, but the DOR has made it very clear that we need to solve this problem today, because if we do not solve it today, we already basically have spent all of our money. We have no more money. If we don't resolve this situation today, whether it be through cuts, an override, or whatnot, they're going to file special legislation in the State House to allow us to deficit spend, and obviously the state doesn't give you anything for free. That's a loan that we have to pay back with interest, and then also there would be some sort of state intervention, whether that be an overseer or a control board put in place, but there would be ramifications that would involve your votes somewhat being diluted by state intervention. So just to let you know, if we vote to postpone it, there are real consequences from the DOR. So
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Okay, next, ma'am, you want to speak? You're speaking to a substitute motion to postpone this until next Saturday. That's exactly what you're speaking to, nothing else. You're either going to agree or disagree to postpone this meeting till or to adjourn this meeting until next Saturday, or postpone it until next Saturday.
Can I elaborate on why I chose the answer I do?
Can you do what there?
Can I elaborate on my answer, on why I choose?
Why?
I'll go on, and then if you want to interrupt me, you can feel free. How's that? My name is Kim Ojakewicz. I live in 776 Berry Road in Templeton. I'm not good at public speaking, so bear with me. I do agree that we should solve this today. We have the town together. It needs to be solved. There's been so much disruption with this. We need to get it solved. I will say that until I walked into this meeting today, I was not going to vote to have my taxes raised once again. I just voted a couple months ago to save the police, the safety of my children, the fire, and everyone. And I'm frustrated, just like every one of you in this room, that we're here again voting on the things that we want to save again. And I don't want my taxes to go up. I can't afford my taxes to go up. But I have changed my mind, because the people that were here before that have all resigned, they're not here to give us answers. They're all new. These people are new. They're here. Most of them are new. The people that have left, that have made the town what they are, aren't here to give us answers. They don't have the answers. They're trying to take our town and put it back together.
Okay.
No, I'm not done. I want to say one more thing.
What?
They're making an effort, seriously, to put our town back together, and I think we should give them one chance to do that. One override, one chance, and to show us what they can do to our town, because if not, and the state takes over, we're not going to have anything. We're not going to have no services. Our houses are going to be worth nothing. Give them a chance, one chance.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your conversation. Thank you. No. Okay, Mr. Brewery, you can have a brief moment.
Yeah, I'm Steve Drury, Drury Lane.
You're speaking whether you're in favor of or opposed?
Yes, I understand that.
Thank you.
I would like to say the fact of the matter is that there is no audit that we can actually all really resolve this issue with. Everything is up in the air. In fact, the paperwork that just came back that he just showed you put the free cash situation in a $20,000 deficit. So I say to you, suspend the meeting and don't worry about the situation of the DOR. We have attorneys, and what they do is they send letters out and ask for more time, okay? We're being pushed into this because this is their resolve, but we are the people, and we have to stop this, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And the fact of the matter is, if you do not do this, all right, and you go along with this, they're already just telling you that it's going to happen again and again. So we really need real resolve. We need more time. There's not enough of us here. And as far as I'm concerned, I want you to vote no, no, no.
Thank you, Mr. Dooley. Okay, sir?
I'm Bill Nash, 9 Waterwheel Circle. I've been a resident of Templeton since 2003, so I appreciate a little bit of what's been going on. My quick question regarding the motion and whether to postpone the, I understand and I appreciate, my wife and I, and we appreciate hearing the selectmen's meetings on Channel 8 to see what's going on, what they're deliberating. But if we say no, in other words, if we postpone making a decision on $505,000, would the state immediately step in and we'd be under their control?
I believe, is that what, go ahead. Mr. Robinson, you go ahead and answer it for me. Yeah. Somebody.
Yep, I'll defer to Mr. Markle to...
All he, excuse me, sit down, please, thank you.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
I would appreciate it if you sit down, and I will decide whether we will answer this question or we won't, and we are going to answer the question, thank you, because it's relative to the postponement as to what they will or won't do, and if there's information to that, I will allow that to be answered. Thank you.
Sir, I can provide some
Go ahead, Mr. Markle.
perspective. Mr. Robinson talked with the same Department of Revenue officials in Boston that I did when I had the discussion about 10 days ago with Jerry Perry, the Director of Accounts. He said to me that you need to have your financial situation fixed, or at least you need to have a strategy in place to fix it by the end of March. Otherwise, this is our deadline, the Department of Revenue's deadline. Communities that do not have their strategy in place or their problems resolved by March 31st, doesn't just apply to Templeton, it applies across the board, will see the filing of special legislation with the legislature that would do two things: enable the Department of Revenue to step in, and number two, enable the town to run a deficit legally for fiscal 2014. Now, just what that means, I think there's some uncertainty as to what they would do. Will they establish a control board? We don't know for sure. He did mention that, but he didn't say we will do it. If the town has a control board established, it may seem superficially attractive to some, but it is devastating to the town's reputation. It would put the town in the same category as Springfield and Lawrence, and that'll make it difficult to recruit a permanent town administrator to replace me. It'll make it difficult to recruit other department heads, and we have a new acting town accountant, but we don't have a permanent one. We also have an acting treasurer, and so it'll make it difficult to recruit. You get notoriety statewide, and there are many negative repercussions to that I don't think the town would appreciate, and as the lady mentioned, I think it'll have an impact upon property values. So my answer is not exactly yes or no. They've given us a March 31st deadline. Deb Wagner in the Department of Revenue's Springfield office sent me a message on Thursday and said, we have not yet received the town's strategy. Please send it. I sent it to her. She sent back, thank you. And so they have our strategy. If the town were to vote, if the town meeting votes for an override, That doesn't mean there will be an override of the tax cap. It means there'll be an election. And so what we would then say to the Department of Revenue, here's the strategy. Town meeting voted this way. There has to be an election before this gap can be fixed with new taxes, if that's, what the town wishes to do. They will be satisfied with that.
Hey, thank you. I would just say that I'm retired, so on a fixed income, so I appreciate all this issue of tax raises and everything, but it sounds to me like we really have to vote for the override, and then the full town, of course, will vote in an election, and hopefully be confirmed. We've got to deal with this, and I honestly, hearing the selectmen's meetings, and I think we can trust the people now. Granted, maybe in the past some things have happened, but we have to trust one another and ask a question, yes. Hopefully there's transparency so we know what's going on. But I certainly recommend that we vote this immediate motion right now, no.
Okay, thank you. Paul, did you want to speak on this particular situation about the moving of the postponement of the meeting, rather?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Quattrochi, and yes, I still live on Military Drive. Postponing this meeting, I can't think of anyone in this auditorium today that wants to be here. But postponing this meeting to another date is just digging ourselves deeper in a hole. It's time we fix this and fix it for good. And I think we have to do something drastic today that none of us want to do. I don't want to raise up my taxes, and I don't think anyone out there wants to raise their taxes. I am against postponing this meeting.
Thank you, Paul. Go ahead, you have one brief statement you want to make?
Yes, I'm against continually and constantly being backed into a corner and pressured and guilted. The homework wasn't done. We don't have enough info to vote.
Okay.
And I'm not saying which way I would vote. If I thought that more taxes again, and more taxes in another month, and more taxes in 2 months would solve the problem, I would vote for more taxes today. But what's the solution? Are we going to be back here in a month voting for more taxes? And
I don't know that. I don't know that answer. Thank you very much for your
after
time.
vote is taken, I'd like to make another motion.
Sit. Take your seat in the auditorium where your seat is, please. Thank you. Now, we are now going to vote on whether we're going to move this or postpone this meeting until April 5th. All those in favor of postponing this, please signify by saying yes. All those opposed signify by saying no. No. It has been defeated. We will not move it. We will now